This is Doc, and I want to say something to the world. As the founder of TIPS Training in Personal Safety, this conversation about tips unfiltered is an ongoing conversation that is close to my heart because, as somebody who is an observer for many years of what's going on within the Caribbean, it kind of bothers me as to the way we function, governments function within the Caribbean. Let me just say this. A few years ago, I traveled to the United Kingdom to do some lectures on human trafficking and to do some research on crime. What I found out kind of stunned me and left me thinking even up to today. I found out that in a country as England, where the population is about 65 to 67 million people, that guns was not their problem. The weapon of choice to commit homicides are knives. You could quicker get stabbed with a knife in downtown London than you would get shot with a gun. Reason being, the average person cannot find guns to buy, or it's either illegal, but England doesn't have a gun problem. England has a knife problem. And my mind went to the point I was thinking, well, if they don't have a gun problem with 67 million people, they probably found a way to solve the issue. Where there's more protection on the borders, whether it's not bringing any guns in the country for the average citizen or gun shops, whatever the problem was, they kind of solved the problem. Now, I'm not saying that people don't have guns, but I'm just looking at the research that I did, what came out. And then I redid some research in the Caribbean and found out these tiny countries, these tiny islands with much less population than the UK, have a gun problem. And in some countries, the illegal guns business is a big business. And the rate of homicides because of that is skyrocketing every day. That people within the Caribbean are living in fear because they are getting shot and killed left, right, and center. It's like if we end up living in the wild, wild west. And my question to government are, I have a couple questions. But one of my questions to government is this: why didn't you look, or haven't you looked at the model of what the UK and maybe other countries have come up with to solve the issue of guns? Whether it's the borders that are unprotected, whether it's the intelligence, whether it's whatever mechanism that they use to bring down the level of illegal guns or the skyrocketing homicides that we have on the weapon of choice of using guns and illegal guns within the Caribbean, that people are dying. In some cases I've seen where you have 5 and 8 murders over one weekend in particular countries, and it's getting worse. Why is it that larger countries like the UK can basically have it more under control? I don't want to say solve the issue, but have it more under control where people can get access to guns. And in our smaller islands where if you breathe too hard or you drive too fast, you end up on the other side of the, in the sea. That's how small some of the islands are. And we cannot find where these illegal guns are coming in from. Nor can we find who is trafficking them. Nor we can find where who's using them. And you could always find sometimes a gun here and a gun here, but you could never have an arrest of who the gun belonged to. and in most cases the guns are illegal. That's my question for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That's my question for the governments of the Caribbean countries, and I would love them to answer that, and I'd love people to think about that. And I want you guys to start submitting um, to our channel, because we have a lot to talk about on safety. We're going to talk about safety on a very broad basis and on a totally different level. We're going to be straight talk, unfiltered, right here on TIPS, Training in Personal Safety.